And good afternoon to those of you in Canada and the United States, and a very early good morning to those in Australia and New Zealand. Welcome. My name is Michael Haynes, Business Growth Specialist for small and medium B2B professional service firms, and I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Breaking Through in B2B. Breaking Through in B2B is a live stream show dedicated to us working as SMB, B2B professional service firm leaders, and this show is all about educating, empowering, and inspiring us as leaders to build and grow thriving businesses. It's my great pleasure this morning, to welcome Sheri Radler. Sheri, how are you? Fantastic to have you here on the show.
Oh, thank you very much. I mean, great day. Excited to be here.
Fantastic. Sheri, for the benefit of our those watching, be it live or recording, can you introduce yourself and just tell us a little about you and what you do, and then we'll get into the conversation.
Okay. So I'm Sheri Radler, and I am based here in the States. Okay, thought you were going to say something there. So, no,
Yeah,
we are
yeah,
based here in the States. We're based in Kentucky, but we are a client services firm. And what that is we work with growing businesses on preparing their financials for prioritizing preparedness, best practices for those growing entities. Most of our clients are in a growth stage that are
yeah.
needing that kind of framework. So it is what we do, and we just really like working with those energetic business owners.
Okay, fantastic. Sheri, can you kind of give us a bit of a talk through as what led you to set up your firm, the R Accounting Group?
Okay, so we actually are, me and my partner, we are what we define as corporate escapees. So,
Yes, know that very well.
so we came up through the corporate world in the Fortune 500s in the framework of the C-suite environment. And
Yes,
as we were working, over the last couple of decades, private enterprise, entrepreneurship has really grown. And so, there came a point where we really felt that we found a gap in the market because our friends and colleagues that were opening these businesses, so often it felt like the conversations we were having kind of started with, but you're doing it wrong. So you're doing it wrong. And that really became the genesis of, everyone is an expert in their specialty, but
yeah,
then somehow this back office and the compliance and the accounting services,
yeah,
this is, sometimes it is the part you have to have. It's not necessarily the part you want to have.
right.
So we felt that there was a place for this, and over the last decade, we have really found that there is.
Fantastic. Sheri, in terms of the growing firms, do you work across industries? Are there kind of particular niche focuses? Where is the sweet spot of where your firm tends to operate?
Okay, so we tend to work with professional services, technology, engineering firms, things like that. They
Yeah,
tend to be in a 1 to 10 million,
yeah,
generally below 50 employees.
yes,
But the common denominator on all of them is that they have that CEO, they have that founder, they have that person leading their organization, and they
yes,
understand that in order to get to that next level or to continue where they are, that the framework and financials, bringing that C-suite decision-making mindset, these are
yes,
no longer decisions that we're just making by staring at the ceiling or by, back pocket, or this is my decision today. It is
right.
to build upon something, we must establish that framework.
Fantastic. Sheri, in terms of the firm, in terms of the area of services, you mentioned like back office, some of those key back office administrative type things. Can you go into a little bit about where your firm tends to focus? Because with accounting firms, I know from my experience with some of the clients that I'm working with their growth strategies, you've got some that are focusing up on that higher end of advisory. You have folks that are transactional. Well, I see a lot are kind of on the transactional, trying to move up to the advisory, which we talked about in our discussion,
Mhm.
kind of sitting at the top. Can you talk about where your firm is kind of its zone of genius and area of focus?
Okay, actually, great question because when it looks at that triangle of services,
Yeah.
The bottom third is the transactional. Everyone has to have it for tax return, no matter where you are. And your transactions, you're categorized, you're coded, you're reconciled, you have a report. This is what you did. This
Yeah.
is behind you. This is only telling you what you did.
Yeah.
That top portion, the advisory, is helping you try to look forward and
Yeah.
chart the course into the future. We
Right.
really consider our zone of genius that middle section because
Okay.
it is that controllership.
Okay.
Because the advisory has to be based on valued and data driven information.
Yeah.
And so by providing and having our fingers in that part of the pie,
Yeah.
when you have a forward thinking business owner, you're beyond the, hey, what did we do last month? And you are into, tell us what we're going to do in the next 13 weeks on a cash flow. What is our projections for next year? Because we're wanting to make decisions and we need information. So
Okay.
we really specialize in coming up with that information so to
Yeah.
help make the decisions.
Okay, fantastic. So it's really supporting those growth organizations in having the data insights, knowledge around cash flow that they need when the CEOs are making those big decisions about expansion for new offerings, going into new markets, and going after new clients. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Excellent. Very, very good. Can you share with us from the time you kind of started to set up the firm to now, what have been, I guess, some of the initial, I guess, learnings that you kind of experienced as you're building out, as you were building out the firm, and really developing up that capability around some of those, cash flow analysis, that kind of middle level that we've just been talking about.
So yes, and I mean, and some of it, and no matter when you come out, every new business owner often starts with the mindset of any business is good business. And
Right.
then whatever industry you're in, you go through that evolution, you get more selective.
Yeah.
You have zoned in on this is the services we like to offer, these are the clients we like to work with.
Yeah.
So yes, for us, obviously we were also one having come out of public accounting, having built one of these client accounting services
Yeah.
groups, you kind of step out thinking like, well, you've already gone around the track once, you know what to do.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you come out on your own and you make all the same mistakes. You wait too long to hire, it takes you too long to decide to delegate,
Yeah.
things like that.
Would you say, kind of looking back on reflection, Sheri, are there some, as you're looking to kind of, set up and build and evolve the firm, would you say, are there kind of some key milestones, is there kind of like a life cycle, a kind of a trajectory, some key milestone phases that those looking to build and or looking to grow their firm that they really need to be conscious of as they're trying to take their firms forward?
Yes, definitely. We launched our firm just months before what became, this global chaos.
Yes.
So and I say that because, as someone that we were opening the firm, it was all the best intentions.
Mm.
Everything will be documented as it started. We know everything coming. And then within minutes, the legislations and PPP and government
Mm.
programs, we were literally working in systems that were being written while we were working in them.
Yeah.
So it got you into this mindset, and I call it like working on the fly.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, guys, it can get to be a bad habit,
Mm.
in order to solidify. And if you want this business to grow, you and I spoken about this before, Michael, how
Yes.
we feel like everyone can go out with drive, determination, hustle. You can find yourself a job. You can make money and support yourself.
Right.
But to build it, and that takes it getting that the business can make money
Mm.
without you physically having to be present and being the one, in our case, me pushing the buttons or you doing something. And
Right.
that is by establishing those frameworks that allow your business to synergize, to bring other people into the organization
Yeah.
and do it just, it's how you can best mind meld how
Right.
you would want something done to that next person. So
So
we hit the ground running, and it took us a minute to circle back to that.
Okay, so Sheri, I'd like to unpack. You talk about, some of the frameworks that are necessary when we're trying to actually build a business versus having a job and work to do. Can you maybe take us through, a couple steps or one or two of those key frameworks that we need to be mindful of when we're looking to be building a business as opposed to, I'm going to say, like developing work, creating a job for us? Because I think as some smaller SMBs, those setting up, there's often that trap in professional services for us to be creating a job versus actually building and growing a firm. So can you take us through a couple of the frameworks, maybe, or some key steps within one or two of those frameworks? I think that would be very valuable.
Okay. A big part of it, I think, is mindset of intentionality.
Okay.
And pricing is where we're going to kind of talk about this because, pricing is one of those, it's a moving target, it's very liquid, and
Yep.
nobody ever feels they've quite done it right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they said yes too fast. Maybe I should have said more for that. But that kind of stuff. But that intentionality is because when you're starting, you're trying to peg the market, but you don't know. I know when we first started, we almost were like secret shoppers and calling some other firms, hey, if we were wanting services, what are your fees?
Yeah.
It was very much like that. Just what was the market doing in our area?
And that's
So,
important. Yeah.
you don't want to undercut yourself. You don't want to overprice yourself. So it's like, what is happening around yourself?
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to set yourself apart, though.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be middle of the pack. If there's a differentiator of why your fees are higher,
Yeah.
don't be afraid to say it. Don't be afraid to promote it. Don't be afraid to stand behind it and raise your hand up high.
Right.
Um, Also evaluating it. So, some of those conversations, and we've had them internally, like, okay, well, we priced this engagement at this.
Hmm.
And now that you kind of got under the hood, you realize, well, it's really not that different than this other engagement that was priced over here. So you're
Right.
starting to kind of recognize things that what are alike or what are same so that you're not going, well, we've had this great conversation. You seem like a really nice guy. So, well, the price today is X.
Yeah.
And sometimes you price like that when you're first starting out,
Yeah.
in businesses.
So it sounds like there's a bit of, in the early stages, there can be a bit of trial and error, but it sounds to me what I'm hearing as you're going through and you're working on the different kinds of services for your clients, there'll be certain processes and there'll be kind of certain consistencies that you can kind of get a feel and start to kind of standardize that if I'm doing this
Yes.
kind of work, we can actually charge X dollars because it's going to involve A, B, C, D. And when we're working on these kinds of services, transactions, analyses, etc., we can charge Y amount because we're seeing that typically it's involving these steps, these processes. So getting a feel and handling it and kind of doing some, I guess, standardization in terms of understanding and then trying to price accordingly based what the market bears. That's what am I hearing? Is that a
You're
fair?
hearing it exactly right. And then as you evolve, you're like, well, we're really not doing a lot of this, or we don't like doing it. So you kind
Yeah.
of, it's a constant evolution of refinement in some
Yeah.
ways.
Okay. Great.
As a business, you are constantly, refining how you're doing, what you're doing, who your audience is, because our audience changes just the same as our product and our industries change.
Right.
So, as a business owner, you will never stand still.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Sherry, I want to also kind of circle back to something that you just touched on a couple of minutes ago about differentiators. So, with regards to the R accounting group, what would you say some of your key differentiators are as a growing and accounting firm?
Okay. For us, we really leverage the fact and we believe in the fact of the corporate C-suite mentality. As a business owner, you often feel like you're sitting there and you're making all the decisions. You're wearing every hat there is. And
Mhm.
in true corporate America, that is not the case. The business is being run almost by a committee. There is a group of people, a group of experts that
Yeah.
are helping that leader lean in to make those decisions. So
Yeah.
we really bring not only ourselves, but we have just a group of colleagues in industry. So it's like if it is not our specialty, we probably know someone that it is.
Okay.
Maybe your issue is not accounting. Maybe our weak spot is marketing. So
Okay.
it's not being afraid to point you to where you need to be and maybe providing an introduction to someone. Sending you to Google to find the answer is never where we want to end the relationship.
And Sheri, no, it's not also how in our world of professional services, it's not how our clients buy either. So Sheri, you've touched on this CEO mentality, having that collective. Um, I'd like to delve into that a little bit because I think that's quite important for us in the world of professional service because our clients, there is this trend where clients are definitely seeking more from, your in our case, we're talking about accountants. They are seeking more as they're growing their businesses. They are seeking more advice and more kind of specialty services to help them with that merger and as they're doing their growth and expansion. Can you give folks a bit of guidance as to how to go about being able to kind of build that and establish that collective, because I think that is really important, as that's something I've just touched upon with one of my clients here in Sydney, interviewing some of their clients. And they were like, Michael, we don't expect the firm to be able to answer and do all these things, but as we're looking to grow, to be relevant, I need them to be able to guide me. So can you give some tips on how an accountant who's looking to grow the firm and often is kind of focusing on their zone of genius, what are some suggestions about developing that mindset, building up that collective? Because I think that's extremely important now in the world of accounting and given where it's going, given what clients expect.
Yes. So, I mean, accounting actually encompasses so much. I mean, it is your operational numbers, it is tax, it is reasonable compensation, it is salary evaluations, it is compensation packages, it is compliance. And that is just that side of accounting. But as a business owner, for our clients, most of them are working within a framework that they have. Not only do you have Sheri, the accountant, we have our tax group that we're talking to. We have an attorney that we are talking regularly as new contracts or engagements are coming up. We're affiliated with an HR group because, as we go into different states or, obviously, personnel issues are just, it's a concern everywhere and those laws are always changing.
Yeah.
So ensuring that your business remains in compliance.
Yeah.
For others, so those are generally like the four big ones. Do you have someone to talk to you about your money, your taxes, your legal, your people, your HR?
Okay.
But then as you get a little larger, again, kind of reframing this to that C-suite, you probably also have an IT group. Well, your accountant is your CFO, your HR was your SHRM over here. So all of these are relationships that sit in an organization. That as a business owner, you cannot be the subject matter expert on all of these. And it often really is to your detriment to try on a couple of them. I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
So establish a relationship. It's not a retainer, it's not a referral, but it is someone you know them, you like them, you trust them. They are in your community. Somehow you're engaged, but they are someone that when you are crossing that bridge, it's like, hey, I got a question. I need to run something by you.
Yeah.
In our opinion, we really feel like you should have that backstop because as a business owner, it just makes you so much more confident.
It makes you so much more valuable as well, because when you can be the connector, clients get massive value from that, which I've experienced with my own practice, working with some of my accounting clients and talking to their clients. Their clients are looking for, and a few of them kind of expect that if the firm is going to be relevant as the business is going forward, you need to be that connector. So Sheri, can you give some advice? Because I'm thinking of a couple of clients in a different professional services sector, but same thing. Can you give some advice about how folks who maybe don't have a lot, how do they start going about building out and developing some of these relationships with some of these key functional areas, so that they have that person that they can get on the phone and talk to or refer the clients to. How do you go about starting to build that network that is so critical and valuable?
And it can be the hardest thing in the world because you know what it requires? Talking to strangers.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really does. And I mean, I make light of it, but it is actually, for some people, it can be so hard to walk into a room that you do not know anyone,
Yeah.
to introduce yourself at a networking event to someone you do not know.
Yeah.
But it is, you've done big, brave things. You are a business owner, and this is just part of it.
Right.
But that really is how we did. Number one, we looked at who our clients already were using.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
Great.
and then
Yep.
we turned around and we reached out and we introduced ourselves. Hey, you are the legal for a client XYZ. We're their new accountant. Just want to introduce ourselves.
Yep.
And we did that for most of their professional advisors. And that was easy because it's generally an email. So
Yep.
you're doing, an impersonal. Going out to, both Nikki and I are members of a few networking groups, Rotaries or things like that.
Mhm.
So it's not an overnight. I mean, it's getting known in your community. As much as we are a worldwide global enterprise,
Yep.
so many relationships are through a know, like, trust mindset, whether it is online like this or
Yes.
within your own community.
Yes.
So put yourself out there.
Okay. So those are really great tips, Sheri. I like that idea of finding out who your clients are using, because I think that's valuable from two perspectives. One, you can introduce yourselves to them and potentially bring them into part of your network. But it's also a great form of client insight to understand as you're trying to be building out your own firm's growth plan. Who are the types of people, given the industry sectors and businesses that we're dealing with? Who are the types of people that we should be connecting with? Finding out who your clients are using is a great way to help identify. That's great. You've also mentioned networking groups as well. Any other types of organizations or events or tips in terms of that might help folks who are looking to, either start building their network or to be further building out their network to, making sure they're maintaining that relevancy for their clients?
I'm going to say two. One is being a lighthouse. Put
Okay.
out blog, put out content, put out, it's no longer the idea I am here and they will come find me.
Yeah.
You need to be out there, and when they see you, and it's more like, I've been looking for you.
Okay.
So putting out content, the world, everything is on social.
Yeah.
So putting yourself in a position where you can be seen is
Okay.
one.
Yeah.
And the second is, and I may have lost the thought, but it was the second thing. I think I may have lost the thought.
Okay. But no, that's a great point you've raised about, putting content, adding value, and being visible. I think that's very important because that's helping you be visible and deliver value to your clients, but also potential collaborators, other professional service providers. We're always looking for who is the accountant, the tech person, etc., that can help. So being visible and delivering value, demonstrating your expertise is also value to our peers and colleagues, because they may want to also be able to mutually collaborate and refer, get insights and perspectives. So that's fantastic.
I caught the thought. The second one is, when you are networking and marketing, don't always look downstream and market downstream to your clients. We get so many of our referrals not from clients finding us. They have been referred to us by their banker, their attorney, their financial advisor.
Yeah.
So it is the relationships we've made with our peers that are driving many of those referrals.
Yes. Awesome. That's such a critical point. And I think a good way to think about how to identify some of those peers is thinking about who, our clients who might be working, other providers who might be working with you at the same time. So as they're working with the account, who else are they working with? Who may they be dealing with before they come to be working with the accounting firm? who might they be dealing with after. Those are some ways that before, during, and after might be ways to think about who are the peers that we want to be establishing those relationships. So that's fantastic.
And don't be
Um,
afraid to ask for referrals.
what was that?
Don't be afraid to ask your people for referrals.
Yeah.
You're one of our greatest clients. You have any friends? We'd love to have another couple just
Yes.
like it. It's
Yeah.
a very easy sentence to say.
But so many people don't do it or don't do it enough. So that's a really great piece of advice of just making the ask, asking who else, who else might need our services? Who else are you using? So just making those questions of the ask can be so valuable. Sheri, I wanted to kind of shift the discussion a little bit. So there's lots, and I'm sure you've seen and read, and particularly in the US, it seems like, the accounting firms, the transition, becoming more advisory, growing the firm. What, in your view, is some of the key things today as we are in, September 2024, as someone who is, established and building and managing a successful firm, what are some of the things I think are some of the essentials, any key must-haves and or must-dos for those that are looking to, take their accounting firm, their SMB accounting firm, and be taking it forward? Are there any essentials, must-have, other than just what we've talked about, having the network, that CEO, C-suite philosophy? Are there other things they must have or be doing that are essential if you're looking to kind of build and taking your accounting firm forward?
Oh, yes. I mean, one thing about it is, as businesses have grown, and so many businesses, I mean, just 28 million small businesses here in the US by themselves, of which 7 million of them employ over like 4 employees. So, I mean, that is, such an impact on the economy. So on any business, but us as an accounting firm, we have to stay up to date of what is going on in technology
Yeah.
and it's so funny because on one hand, the concept of accounting has remained the exact same since the Chinese did it on abacuses.
Yeah.
Seriously. I mean, this goes back to, historic times, counting money, credit, banks, things like that. So much has stayed the same, but the world moves differently and the information needs to be available so much more immediately. It is
Yeah.
no longer sufficient to get your financial information 20, 25 days after month end close. That
Mhm.
information is so stale.
Okay.
Ongoing communications, especially if you're working with an outsourced firm like us, we
Yeah.
do value being set on a shelf and set and forget. They just do the numbers. We need to be in a meeting monthly. What are you thinking of? What's coming up on the pipeline? Because that's where we're hearing things like,
Yeah.
we need to buy new trucks or we need to do this. And those are the conversations that need to be feeding into your accountant so we
Yeah.
kind of can help you plan for these things.
Okay. So it sounds like I'm hearing technology is quite important to be relevant and very timely. And it sounds like communications and staying on the pulse in terms of both what's going on with your clients and their businesses, as well as what's going on in the industries that they operate. Is that a
Yeah.
fair assessment of some of the kind of essential must-haves? Yeah.
Yeah. So as we've grown up, we've really kind of closed the industries that we work in just
Okay.
because you can't stay an expert at all of them.
Okay. Yeah.
You
Okay.
know?
Any tips with regards to that niching down, which is something that we often hear through, all the big experts, business advisors tell us, niche down, but it's reluctant. Any tips from a practical, someone who's actually done that? Any tips as to number of industry verticals, or any tips about how to go about or niching down, or how much should you niche down to? Because that's something that people say, yeah, I should do, but there is a reluctance to actually make that conscious effort to say, I'm only going to serve X, Y, and Z.
And we've resisted it in some ways because
Likewise, too. It's taken me a long time to come to that point. It's taken me really, only in the past 18 months, I've really zoned in accounting, technology, and law. That's it. And I'm a strategist. I always say niching. It's taken me a long time to have that come to Jesus moment to say, yeah. Any tips from an accounting firm perspective as to either how many or how did you move on to finally get over that resistance? Because that's something a lot of folks in professional services generally have a big time with.
So it kind of came down to a couple things. One, obviously Nikki and I started the firm, but as we grew, it became how much of what is being done that only she or I could do because it wasn't knowledge that our team was coming in intuitively.
Yeah.
So that kind of played a little part in it.
Okay.
It also came in that not all niches actually have to be a sector. It can be a region, it can be a software, it can be a problem, it can be, so your niche doesn't just necessarily be, I only do lawyers. It is, so your niche can be whatever you like to do. And
Yeah.
you both say, people were willing to pay money and I am willing to invest in
Yeah.
perfecting this process.
Yeah.
From
Right.
there, I mean, there are people that niche in softwares to cleanups. I mean, there
Yeah.
are a million niches. Find
Yeah.
the one you like. I
Yes.
personally, we will never probably niche in just one. We believe in recession proof for
Yeah.
us and our clients,
Yeah.
diversification.
Yeah.
So we try to balance, we don't want to be all construction because if construction goes under for some
Yeah.
reason, we
Yeah.
want to make sure we're balanced on the other side.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's not a hardcore decision, but it is something as we look at our client portfolio,
Yes.
we do keep a little bit of an eye on that
Yes.
we don't have all our eggs in one particular basket.
Right. So, Sheri, that's fantastic. I think you've raised a number of things around that whole niche aspect. That one, in B2B, in a business context, we tend to think by verticals, but you're thinking, yeah, let's think broader than verticals. It could be by region, by problems, by business objectives. And you also mentioned a point about it, making sure you're understanding your client portfolio and understanding where you're winning, and making sure that it's making money that people will pay for it as well, because that's quite important. You said not to niche down to just one. Would you say as a guideline in terms of that niching, and you also mentioned about being fluid with it as well, is there a guideline as number that you've seen from experience with your firm as to how many niches to kind of focus on as a guiding principle? Is it 2, 3, 5? Is there a number that you found? You've definitely said not just doing one, and I fully agree. One might be a little too, it can be non-recession proof. Is there a number that you found that tends to
We
work?
don't actually have a number. What it has come down to in some ways is if that niche needs a specialized software and you
Yeah,
have to learn a software for that, how many specialized softwares can we utilize? And
right.
even using restaurants as an example, I mean, between Toast, Extra Chef, Restaurant 365, there are niches within just that.
Yes, yes,
So there are niches within
yeah,
industries and within niches.
yeah,
So for us, we kind of address it with our team that
yes,
it is how much software do we want to become not just familiar with, but we have to become pretty deep subject matter experts on this software if we're
yeah,
utilizing it.
yeah,
So we'll take you all day long if you're kind of in a software we're already in. If
yeah.
you're walking in the door with, hey, you're going to have to learn a software,
Hmm.
we're actually having conversations of, do we want to learn it? Do we want to dig into this? Are we going to find more clients that use this software? Because if
Yeah.
it's only going to be a one and done, do we have better things to do over the summer? Would we rather be off on Fridays than to dig into this? So
Yeah. So I think you've raised a great point there about the amount of expertise that is going to be required to really effectively service those clients. Is that capabilities that you have, how much investment in time, effort, and money that is required, and that you want to do? That can be very much a guiding principle as to uh, the breadth and extent of your offerings, or to how much you're going to niche down, is to use that as a guiding factor. And I think that's a great point, because that depth of expertise is something very much our clients are looking for. So making sure we don't spread ourselves. We don't want to go too narrow. We don't want to spread ourselves too thin
yeah.
either. Sheri, this has been fantastic. Is there any final last key lessons, do's or don'ts as we start to wrap up that you'd like to share with our viewers, those watching on recording about, building and growing their SMB firm? Yeah, any final do's or don'ts or what's up?
I will, businesses, guys, we kind of come into it and almost like there's two ways you start off. One, you are on fire and people are knocking on your door and you are moving fast. And
Yeah,
others, you have to, you have to do the climb and build it. And either way, no matter how it's happening for you, please don't jump into it so fast that you put at risk to rush the growth, that you put at risk the quality and consistency of your output.
yeah,
Because no matter how far you get in that growth, if at the end it doesn't sustain and it is on quicksand and
yeah.
you end up face planting, you've done more harm than good. So,
Right, yeah,
moderate yourself. Scaling too quickly can overcommit. So just moderate. Be aware of what you're doing,
yeah,
because fast growth like a rocket, it is exciting. But if it's short-lived,
yeah,
that guy that started off a little slower, but he's going to
yeah.
outpace you in the long run,
Yeah.
you know.
And that's such great advice, Sheri, because I was just reading a book called How Clients Buy, talking about professional service firms and the behavior of our clients. And the number one principle they said is do quality, great work, because that's fundamental to set things, all the other things you're talking about, to be able to be visible, develop the right reputation, and get the referrals, the collaboration. It's all contingent on that. So
Yeah,
that really ties into that principle that you've got to make sure you're doing quality work, because that's a foundation for everything else. Well,
exactly.
Sheri, thank you so much for taking the time to come on to the live stream show. You've shared some great insights. For folks that want to connect with you, connect with the firm, how do they get in touch with you, with the R Accounting Group?
So we are at www, the letter R,
Yeah,
accountinggroup.com. And I am Sheri at raccountinggroup.com.
fantastic.
So feel free.
Excellent. I'll definitely have those details put in the YouTube show notes. Well, thank you, folks. That concludes this episode for Breaking Through in B2B. I'm Michael Haynes, and wish you all well. A great weekend for those of you watching live, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Bye, guys.